tequila fountain, and live animals. So, but I think we got a yes. Thank you, Danny. Cory's smiling. And in the end, I think Cory would want this just as it is, with close friends from Budapest and all over the place, gathered in the restaurant he created with his favorite food and drinks, celebrating his genius and sharing old stories that celebrate his genius, and maybe a few strippers. This place is imbued with his mad spirit and joy and generosity, and like I said, we do our best to keep that going. Anyway, so thank you for being here. Chances are none of you have seen him in over 10 years, and it just shows the kind of effect that Cory had on people. Putting this booklet together was an absolute joy. I got to be with Cory again and laugh. I mean, I don't know if you read this, but a name for a fast food Indian restaurant, Hurry Curry.
Love it. Classic.
So, and I also wanted to include some personal things. Not too personal, but to give you an idea of what he was going through. Of course, he wouldn't want to talk about this stuff, but it is the elephant in the room. The fact that he suffered from depression for so many years. I mean, again, none of you had seen Cory in over a decade, yet you're still here, you're all here. It often happens with people like Cory. The funniest, most creative, empathetic, the liveliest people suffer from depression. He tried everything. He went to AA meetings. He hated that. I mean, can you imagine Cory at an AA meeting? But he did try a few times. He tried just about every antidepressant out there. And that in itself took a big toll on his mental health. He quit drinking for many years. He gave for many years. But what did work for him, and the help he got, was from a doctor. I can't recall his name, but he was a trained professional, a psychotherapist, who understood him, and he was making real progress with talk therapy. Then one day, the doctor told him that this is the last time we will meet. I have inoperable cancer, and he was dead in a year, or in a month. And this was a devastating blow for Cory. And Cory was a sharp dude. We all know that. So it bugged him when people would tell him what they thought he needed. Get a job, do yoga, exercise, meditate. One of these days we'll figure out the complex psychology behind depression many years from now. I'm sure we will. So if I may, I think what he would want me to say to you, if you do know someone who is suffering from depression, put down your phones and listen to them. And just listening and trying to understand means so much. So, anyway, you guys were here in the 90s. That period of Budapest is what brings us all together. Cory, my first night here, I met so many of you. I mean, Mike Moriarty, day 2, I think. Bob, night 1, snow. And all of you, Tibor, week 1. It's just amazing. It was an incredible time, and so many crazy characters here, and so much something in the air. None of us quite knew what it was leading to, but there was a lot of hope and optimism and excitement. Cory was a big part of that, living in this beautiful city, starting businesses, organizing that epic bus trip to Venice. You were there.
I was there.
You were there.
I was there.
You were there too, Tom. And those elaborate Thanksgiving dinners on Bemrock Park.
Oh my God,
That's the reason we opened the restaurant, because people said, Cory, we did the major productions. He would take our Como Media staff away 3 days prior and make them. It's like slave labor. But those were great parties, and people said, you guys should open a restaurant. And we were like, oh my. So, anyway, I was with a Hungarian friend a couple weeks ago, and it was funny because he said, no matter how messed up this country is, no matter what we've done with our lives, at least we had the 90s here. I thought that was so cool. Cory and I, we met at Boulder. We went to school at the University of Colorado Boulder, but we never really hung out. But my friend Fuzz and I, we had this monumental graduation party. We had a farm like 10 miles outside of town, and we had these 20th Century Fox style searchlights. There were hundreds of people there. Anyway, we needed a DJ, so we hired Cory, because he was everyone knew Cory at Boulder. So Cory had two great quotes that night while he was spinning tunes. The first was, "Okay, everyone, the barn is on fire, but the fire department's on its way." It's true, somebody lit the barn on fire. It was awful. And the second was, "All right, listen up. I'm not playing any more music until I get some drugs." Yeah, it was Boulder, so within 2 seconds somebody gave him ecstasy or something. So before the party started, I asked Cory if he could help with the cleanup. And the next day rolls around, and nobody shows up for the cleanup, except for Cory. And so that's when our friendship began. I moved to New York, he moved to California, then he moved to Europe, he was all over the place. And then he showed up in New York, and, excuse me. If anyone wants to know what Cory was like before Budapest, the answer is he was exactly the same. But he had a long ponytail, which was unfortunate, but it was the 80s. What I immediately liked about Cory was he had this lovable con man quality. I mean, everyone here knows what I'm talking about. When I told my boss in New York that I was moving out here, and he knew Cory, I'll never forget, he said, "No, Mo, you can't go with Cory. He's like one of those guys you meet at the racetrack." Cory loved that. And I was always the perfect foil for Cory the con man. I was his perfect mark. I mean, he talked me into coming out here. So when I arrived in November 93, after months of phone calls and letters back then, begging me to come out here, he picked me up in a taxi, and as we drove into town, he announced, I came out here because we were going to do a literary magazine, we're going to do a culture magazine. He says, "Okay, I got a better idea. We're going to do a phone book." And he walked me through the whole thing, and I thought, you know what, that's actually a good idea. Yeah, okay, come on, I'm in with that. And then he said, "Okay, there are two other things that you need to know about." What? I told everyone that I directed the B-52's Love Shack video.
But he
And
did.
everyone believed it, but he did. Well, that's next. Yeah, the fact is, Cory he just couldn't help himself, because when we were in New York, he was friends with Fred Schneider, the lead singer of the B-52s. I used to go out drinking with him. Fred loved Cory. It wasn't enough to say I'm buddies with the lead singer of the B-52s. I directed their video, most famous video. All right, what else? What's next? He said, "Okay, I told everyone in Budapest that you were an LA cop. That's how I know you."
On a horse.
Motorcycle.
Well, the motorcycle cop.
No.
He said horse.
That was your imagination thing going. That's imagination thing going. That was your fantasy stuff going on. Big fantasy. That's a fantasy.
Sorry, Andy.
So he told everyone that I pulled him over on a routine traffic stop on a motorcycle, and he made me laugh so hard that we became best friends. And then after the whole Rodney King thing, I quit the force. I was disillusioned with the police department. So. And of course, for years, I had to answer questions from everyone about me being in LA. What was it like to be a cop? Do you guys remember David Karestesh? He's probably still around. Anyway, I think it was like 3 years ago. I saw him somewhere. He says, "Were you a cop? You really were a cop?" There was this radio show back then. I think it was Radio Bridge. Was that? Yeah. And they did a profile of Cory. And during this profile, this guy, he had a very NPR type announcer voice, and he said, "And Cory's business partner, Mo Ortiz, a former Los Angeles police officer." A few years later, when we were deep into the phone book, we created this Yellow Pages English language phone book, and like 2 years into it, we just wanted it. We were finished. You know, Cory liked to start things, but managing them was not his specialty. So we wanted to sell the thing, and Cory heard about an American, this guy Jeff McAllister, who came here to start a Yellow Pages with GTE, a big multinational phone book company. And Cory knew right away that we had to sell the phone book to these guys. And so before our first meeting with Jeff at Beckett's, Cory went into full con man mode. And it was a beautiful thing to witness. We were at Beckett's, and he's buying him drinks, he's flattering him, and then he asks, "So where'd you go to school?" And Jeff said, "Oh, I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison." "You went to Madison? Mo went to Madison." So I had 2 full seconds to either shoot this down or go with it. So I was like, yeah, I went to Madison. Jeff was just beside, oh my God, you know, where did you live? I've never been to Madison, Wisconsin, but I knew that every Midwestern town has a State Street. So I said, I'm right off State Street. And he said, oh my God, I was a bartender at Whiskey Jack's on State Street. Did you used to go there? Yeah, I think so, but I was doing a lot of drugs then, and I dropped out of Madison after the first semester. But Cory was dying. He was dying. He loved it. And this went on for years. And whenever we would meet Jeff, we became friends with Jeff. I mean, he was one of the investor in this restaurant. Cory would get him to talk about Madison, just to watch me agonize when he would ask more questions. Dreaded it. Anyway, I've never laughed more with someone, and I know a lot of you could say the same thing. I'm grateful that I got to be by his side during the best part of his life. One more story. A big part of our relationship was obviously food and cooking and traveling and exploring new restaurants. So when I went to Denver to visit him, I mean, you know, he knew what was going on. He wanted me to come out and to say goodbye. And he was at home. It was a hospice situation. He'd lost a lot of weight. He'd slowed down quite a bit. He was on a lot of medication. So I get there and went straight from the airport. We watched the Super Bowl. And at halftime, he said, "So Moe, you're here in Denver. What are you thinking food-wise? What do you want to eat?" And I said, "Cory, I don't really care. I'm here to see you, man. I don't care what I eat." He interrupts me and says, "I'm thinking barbecue and brisket. Do you feel like brisket?" "Well, sure." "Okay, because I haven't been able to take down food in about a month. But if you bring me some brisket, I'm thinking I can take a little bite, and if I can take that down, I'd just like to try it. And if not, I could blend it. And I can make a brisket soup. I just want to taste it again." I just wanted to hug him so badly. People often say, you know, we'll never forget him. Of course we'll never forget him, but I would prefer to say that I will always remember him, and I will miss him for the rest of my life.
Love you, Mike.
So, next we have Bob Layton, old friend of Cory's from even before I got here.